Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Stephanie over at Flyleaf Counseling. I'm with Miss Allie Martin from Flyleaf and Miss Kim Leppert from Flyleaf. Also, hello, ladies.
How are
Hello.
you today?
Here we meet again.
I know it's kind of becoming a thing. I
I
like
know
it.
I'm kind of fond of our thing.
I do. I am too. I miss you in the office though still.
I know, me too.
So
Yeah.
we're all at home today. We're all in our little home spaces.
We are. What's our topic today?
So today we're going to talk about gaslighting. And it's
That's a
kind of
lighthearted
come up,
topic.
that's a
Feels
fun
good.
one, isn't it? It's come up a bit because, well, the Dixie Chicks have their new song, Gaslighter.
Right.
And that's one that's becoming very popular, but I also think that I've been seeing a lot of it, and I think you guys have too, a lot on the internet about it, almost like it's a new thing, but honestly it isn't. So
Right.
let me share where gaslighting originated. So there was a movie in the 1940s, and it was actually based in the 1800s. And it was about a man who was staying out all night and having affairs and doing all kinds of stuff on his wife, and he would come home and not tell her where he was and hide secrets and do things and kind of make her think she was crazy. And the word gaslight is the name of the movie, but the word gaslight came from the fact that all the lights in the house and in the apartment, all the lights in the apartment were run by gas. And so there had been a murder up in the apartment above them, so there was nobody living up there, but apparently there were some jewels or something hidden up there. So part of the plot of it is that he's going upstairs and trying to find these jewels, but he doesn't want her to know. So when he turns on the light upstairs, the lights downstairs dim. And so she's talking to him about these lights dimming and talking to him about hearing footsteps and all these things, and he's like, "You're crazy, lady, that's not happening." And he does everything he can to distort her reality, because he doesn't want to be married to her, but he doesn't want to leave her. He wants her just to think that she's crazy. And so that's where that term gaslighting has come from. Pretty
I think
cool.
Ingrid Bergman was in that movie.
Was it?
And I think it's called Gaslight, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a book by that name, and apparently it's some kind of like amazing thriller novel and that kind of thing.
Didn't you say there was a play too on Broadway?
Yeah, in the 70s or 60s, they did a Broadway play, which I would love to have gone to see.
That's amazing.
And
So we're
we might
talking
see an
about, like,
emergence.
I'm sorry, we're talking about like a movie that was in the 40s, and then it would gain popularity again in the 60s or 70s, and it now feels new. You were saying that people are just learning this word or learning what this word is.
Yeah, and even now people don't, I think that the Dixie Chicks song, honestly, recently people have brought it up, saying like, what is this thing that they're talking about? And this has been around since, at least having, as far as having a name,
Right.
since the 40s.
Mm-hmm. I remember being trained in our CSAT work, and they used that Carol Burnett clip, that show with, what's his name, Tim Conway?
Conway.
And I don't know if you guys remember it or not, but he gaslights her because she's like, and he gaslights her because she thinks that he's leaving the house to go meet somebody. And he's like, no, it's fine. And that he actually, like, I think we were talking about it, and he actually like gets her to apologize for questioning him.
Right.
And then it turns out that he was leaving her to go meet somebody.
And she
Yeah,
caught him.
that's what it is.
And she caught him, yeah.
Right.
So I have this definition of it that I really like, and it's by Dr. Robert Stern, who wrote this book called The Gaslight Effect. And it says, gaslighting is the systematic attempt by one person to erode another person's reality by telling them that what they are experiencing isn't so. And that it's also the gradual giving up on the part of the other person. So it's like you're being told that your reality isn't your reality, and then at some point you kind of start believing them and believing that your reality isn't what you're not seeing what you think you're seeing.
Right.
So that systematic erosion of my ability to trust my gut.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's abuse.
And it is abuse, and it's more damaging from what we experience in our office than physical abuse or any of the infidelity or anything. The hardest repair is around gaslighting.
Right. It takes a long time to be able to trust what's in front of you.
It does. And that comes, what also comes up a lot is that people think that because somebody gaslights you, they are narcissists. What do you think about that?
I think that they can coexist in the same space. I don't think that one has to be present for the other to be present. I think that people can gaslight in the smallest little ways, right? We can gaslight ourselves by denying our own reality to something.
Right.
Right.
So I don't necessarily think that it's only narcissists who gaslight.
And statistically, the percent of people in the general population who would meet the DSM criteria for narcissistic personality disorder is really, really tiny. It's like 1% of the general population, but between 2 and 16% of the clinical population.
Yeah, that's not many people.
No.
But I think but people that are addicts gaslight, or they wouldn't be able to be in a relationship of any kind, whether it's a friend relationship, or if you're hiding secrets, whether it's addiction or infidelity, whatever it is, if you're hiding secrets and living kind of that double life, you have to gaslight in order to do that. You could, because you're going to get close to being caught at different times, you have to distort reality for other people.
Right.
Even if it's like picking a fight, right? So if you come home late and your partner says, hey, why are you home late? And instead of giving an explanation, it's, why are you asking where I'm going all the time? And you don't trust me. And you get this thing going, and the person who is just questioning why you're home late starts apologizing for upsetting you for doing something that wasn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that example right there, you can see that Cartman drama triangle playing out, right? There you have the perpetrator, offender, the victim, martyr, and the rescuer, and these two are moving around this triangle like rapidly. And the person who is just saying, hey, what's going on is something I need to know, and then the other person postures, and then the person who's just questioning then comes in and rescues.
Yeah. And one of the biggest points of healing is recognizing the gaslighting that occurred in the relationship and owning it, and
on behalf of the betrayer, like that they're able to recognize that what I did is gaslighting.
Right. And that is I think that is the most important piece for a partner to heal.
Is the validation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when we say partner, we mean the betrayed spouse or betrayed partner.
Right.
Right.
Right. The person who was gaslit.
Mm-hmm.
That person needs to hear that their spouse take ownership of the crazy making and the gaslighting that happened. When you questioned me in this and I said this, you were right. I was actually doing this.
Yeah. It's so validating, because those kinds of situations can be years old, but they never really go away. You still kind of hold on to it going, I still didn't really get the whole story from that. Or I can't bring it up because she will get angry with me, and I don't want to make him mad. So I'm not going to bring it up, but I also don't believe it. And we just end the argument by going, you're right.
Right.
Or what I run into is like, things have been so good lately, but there's this thing that doesn't feel right, but everything's been so good. And having to go back and readdress some of these things that are still wounding is kind of vulnerable and is treaded on lightly.
Yeah. And I always tell people, if somebody sends you a text or you have a conversation with somebody and you have to go to your friend and go, does this sound weird to you? Or does this sound like it has some kind of hidden meaning to you? Then chances are it does. And you need to go back to the person who sent it and go, can you tell me what this means? Because this is what I'm reading into this. And that's one of the only ways that you can kind of combat gaslighting, is get their reaction to being confronted with it.
Right. So living a life in consultation, right? Having those safe people to go and check that in with, and then having the courage and the necessity to go in and check it in with the person who isn't being forthright.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen to stupid people. I think that's the other thing, is people think that you're simple-minded if you start believing the lies, or you keep continuing to believe the lies that somebody's telling you. And the reality of it is they make you a little bit off before they start the manipulation, because their job is to distort your reality. So when they're using this tool as a way to manipulate you, if they think that your self-awareness and that your trust of your own gut is enough, that it's not going to work, the first thing they have to do is erode that trust.
Right.
So this is abuse.
It is abuse. It's emotional abuse.
And it's the thing that bothers me about gaslighting, I think probably more than anything, is that it's seen as funny. And so we see it in the media, and we see it in movies, and we see it on TV, or we see somebody go, you got caught in bed with somebody, and just deny it, and make her think she's crazy. And the whole sitcom is about somebody getting caught doing something and trying to make the other person think they're nuts. And it is the only abuse I can think of that we find humorous, and that it's okay to throw out there and use to laugh at people who fall for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or are victims from it, rather.
I agree with you. The use of humor makes it even worse.
Right. And as we're having this conversation, all of those like Carnes denial mechanisms like use of humor inappropriately, or avoidance by creating an uproar or distraction, you know, like talking about the necessity of gaslighting for someone who might be addicted. You know, is that the primary objective, or is this like a secondary gain thing, that if you are gaslit to the point of like no tomorrow, that I get to go and pursue the object of my addiction?
Right.
You know, like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it, you know, which one do we address first? So discuss.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know if a person can accept the fact that they've gaslit until addiction is addressed and recovery is maintained for them to be able to take ownership of it.
Right. It's not just about getting sober.
Right.
It's entering recovery, so that, you know, if gaslighting is coming from a place of there's also an addiction occurring, that can get treated as well.
Right. And so that's that whole, well, whether it's an affair, whether it's an addiction, it's that whole second order change that we're always looking for. It's not that the behavior stopped or the addiction stopped. It's the fact that I'm able to take recognition of my behavior has impacted you.
Yeah.
And the losses you experienced in that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. And I think, well, like we have talked about this before in our office about gaslighting, is it's frustrating when you see like that song, the Shaggy song.
It was me.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
That's gaslighting. Or if you remember, and you're old enough to remember the Eddie Murphy, like when he walks in and his girlfriend catches him in bed with somebody, he looks dead in the face and goes, "Wasn't me," and everybody thought that was funny, you know, but it really isn't okay to do to people.
No,
right.
I mean, even on Facebook right now, there's this video of a woman who catches her man, I don't know if they're husband or boyfriend or whoever, leaving another woman's house in the same neighborhood. And he is sprinting through yards, through all kinds of like this residential neighborhood. And she's just shouting at him, filming him, running. And he jumps in a window, changes his clothes real quick, and lays on the couch like nothing happened. And she's like, "I saw you leaving." And he's like, "I didn't do that. You're crazy." And I was like, everybody saw you running. Your wife was filming.
I mean,
it's just cruel.
It's cruel.
And ways to know that you're being gaslit is for someone to tell you you're crazy all the time.
Right.
Or you're overreacting, or you're emotional, or you're seeing things, or that whole like stay out of my business, or, you know, that the picking fights from out of nowhere so that they can leave the house. You know, this like, why are you mad all of a sudden? All I did was ask you a simple question, or anything to avoid having a conversation, and they'll go to any lengths to do that, or to apologize for something that we didn't do wrong.
Right.
That's a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do work around healing from gaslighting, you will carry that into your next relationship, because you don't just start to trust yourself because you're not with that person anymore who had been gaslighting you. You have to learn that.
Sorry, what was that last one? I cut you off.
No, I just said that you have to learn that.
Yeah. But what I'm hearing from both of you, and I think that all of us are in agreement, healing will happen though.
Yeah.
You will begin, if you do the work, you'll begin to trust your gut again.
Right.
Right. So healing's possible for the one who was gaslit, but also for the one who was gaslighting.
Right.
You know, with the acknowledgement that yes, what I was doing was very hurtful and abusive. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know that we can use the word abusive without using the word traumatic also.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, we talk about it being a narcissistic behavior, and it really is, because it's a favorite tool of narcissists, but it is also narcissistic because my goal when I'm gaslighting is to keep myself out of trouble, or whatever it is I'm trying to get out of, at the expense of everybody around me. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about anything. I just am not able, I don't have the fortitude to contain that I have done something that might put me in a bad light or be seen in a bad light. And so because I can't do that, I am going to do verbal and emotional harm to the people that I say that I love in my life. And that's not okay. Mm-hmm. That is never okay.
Right.
But that's why that makes it such a narcissistic behavior.
Right.
So,
and you don't have to be a narcissist to be a gaslighter.
No.
No. Like I said, we can gaslight ourselves, right? Sure. Oh, I'm not really feeling that way, or it's not that important to me. I mean, we have a way of minimizing ourselves.
Shitting on ourselves.
Don't shit on yourself or anybody else.
No, that's right. As soon as we tell ourselves our reality isn't our reality, then we're gaslighting ourselves.
Right.
and it is just cruel. So I do find it disturbing that it is funny in so many ways to so many people to watch somebody's sense of reality get twisted and shifted.
Right.
It is actually quite sad.
But I'm a total believer, and you got to name it to tame it. So I think conversations like this, where we're talking about the really difficult things and talking, like giving it validity and giving it a voice and a name and a definition and stats around it and like guidance on how to heal from it, it takes the mystery out of it.
Right.
So hopefully people can take this information, use what they need, get rid of the rest, whatever, and get different.
Yeah, and I will say your relationship can heal from this, but it takes both people.
Absolutely.
It's not only one person. So if you're in a violent domestic violence relationship, chances are you're gaslit and every woman that I have, and I'll be gender specific, but every woman I've ever worked with that came out of a domestic violence relationship will tell you the emotional part of it was way more difficult than the physical part. They would rather have the physical get done than be stuck with all of the emotional garbage that comes along with exiting that relationship and all of the fear that they have. And so if that's happening, chances are that's not going to change in that relationship. But with addiction and with infidelity and different things, if your behavior is changing, then and you own it and you can work through it, chances are then you can heal from that.
Mm-hmm. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We see it happen. I don't think we would do the work that we do if we didn't believe that healing was possible on so many different planes.
Agree.
You know?
And when it happens, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And you deserve to heal even if you don't stay in your relationship. If you choose to stay, then you can heal in it. But if you choose not to stay, then, just because you're not in it, like I said, like 5 seconds ago, just because you're not in it anymore doesn't mean that everything is okay. There's still some work to be done and you're worth that healing.
Well, I was just going to say, you have the right to heal, but the responsibility to do it in a healthy manner.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I agree completely.
All right. Final thoughts before we sign off on this another wonderful topic. Wednesdays, I'm loving them.
I am too. I shared this with you guys. I'll share it again though. So when I was a kid, I used to gaslight my mom. And it's so dumb. I didn't do it enough that she really thought she was crazy, but every so often it would just make me giggle. Or I would just call her name. I'd be like, "Hey, Mom." And she'd turn around and look at me and she'd go, "What?" And I'd go, "What? I didn't call your name." And she'd be like, "What? You didn't call my?" "No, I didn't." And she would just move on and then I would just giggle. And I didn't know at the time that's what I was doing. I just thought I was messing with her. But, sorry, Mom.
Are you going to call her and take ownership of that?
She can watch this and she can, "There's my apology, Mom. Happy Mother's Day."
Like a confession booth.
You really weren't crazy. Maybe I have some of that sociopath in me somewhere.
No.
No, that's a topic for another day. I'm sure
we'll be talking about that.
I'm sure the percentage of sociopaths in the general pop is very small as well.
Yeah.
I think it's 3%.
3%. Okay,
Right.
so still very small.
Right.
So I'm sure.
Depending on some stats, they want to lump all of the cluster Bs together, and then you're up to 10% almost of the population.
It's such a tiny piece of the population, but it is getting so much press these days.
Right. And we don't, we don't need a DSM diagnosis to heal. I know that we should be good diagnosticians as clinicians. We should know what things look like, but if it's not serving you and it doesn't feel good, let's heal from it.
Yeah, I agree. I love you guys.
Sounds good. Oh, I miss you guys. I love you all.
When I see you.
Yay.
All right, I'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Allie, do you want to give our sign off?
I'd love to. Please follow us on Facebook at Flyleaf Counseling. We are also on the internet at www.flyleafcounseling.com. And if you're watching us on our new YouTube channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our wonderful content.
You do that so much better than I do. Yeah.
I've been practicing.
Okay, well, we'll see you guys soon. See you next week.
See ya.
Bye.